The Order of the Faulyd, a renowned group of Frey warriors, trained under the legendary warrior Tech-Chin himself, and some of the greatest swordsmen during their time, second only to the Teshlor Knights. They survived for hundreds of years after the fall of the Novronian Empire, only to mysteriously fizzle out. But before the last member died, they passed along their sword-fighting technique to humans, who would continue to practice for the next several hundred years. This is the story we were told. But what if there were a deeper story? A story that can only be figured out from the scattered clues here and there. What if the Order didn't simply fizzle out after hundreds of years, but instead met with a much more sinister end? Today, we uncover the mystery of the true downfall of the Order of the Faulyd. This discussion will include spoilers for the Legend series, Rise and Fall series, and Riyria series. Let's start by recapping the story as everyone knows it. After the Novronian Empire was founded, one of the last remaining Galantians, the legendary sword master Tech-Chin, retired to Meridid and decided to teach his sword technique to other Frey. Outside of the Teshlor Knights, these Frey were the only ones who knew of these techniques. Eventually, Tech-Chin died, but his followers, now known as the Order of the Faulyd, continued to support the Empire in an ancillary capacity, completing tasks such as protecting royal family members. Their name came from Tech-Chin's legendary sword, the Faulyd, which means Tooth of the Dragon. In the year 2124, the Empire falls, and the Order goes quiet. We don't hear about them for hundreds of years, but that isn't saying much, as we don't have much written about that time period. We do know that during that time, the Church of Navron continued as a seat of power under the leadership of a disguised Maundale. Then, over 200 years after the collapse, Glenmorgan I unified most of the imperial land again, beginning the Steward's reign. But then, 2 generations later, his grandson would be betrayed, and the human lands would again be in disarray. It was around this time that a human by the name Cedric Picalernon would learn the Tech-Chin from the last living member of the Order of the Faulyd. Cedric would then help Tolan Essendon defeat Lothamad the Bald of Trent, who was invading from the north. From there, the Tech-Chin and the sword would pass down the Pickering family line. So that's the story we know. But now, let's go back with a critical eye this time and fill in the missing pieces, beginning with the fall of the Empire. Once the capital city of Persepolis is destroyed, Maundale wanted to consolidate power as the patriarch of the Navron Church. One of his biggest threats would have been the Frey living in Meridid. Not only did the church preach the evil of the Frey, but Maundale's plan included distorting facts about the Empire, a task much easier done on humans who live less than 100 years, versus Frey who would live for thousands. We know some Frey went southeast to Ghent, but the Order of the Faulyd would have needed to flee, most likely away from Maundale and the church. Remember when we said that Faulyd meant Tooth of the Dragon? Look what can be seen here on this map from the Rise and Fall series. Hidden and barely legible, Dragon's Teeth. This would have been a rugged place on the outskirts of civilization, a perfect place for an order of outcasts to hide. So now the Order was safely hidden, far from Maundale, who was set up down in Rochelle. But 200 years later, when Glenmorgan united the kingdoms, he moved his capital to Irvanon, and Maundale followed him, putting him much closer to the Order. Maundale is probably still preoccupied with the Glenmorgans at this point, But 70 years later, that problem is taken care of when Glenmorgan III is betrayed and dispatched, leaving the human kingdoms leaderless once again. Now this is where we need some more speculation, but the events do seem to fit right in place. It was at this point that something happened that had not happened before. A member of the Faulyd decided to teach the Tech Chin to a human. And now perhaps this was just chance timing, but perhaps Mwandale had found the order and had begun hunting them, and this was a last-ditch attempt to keep the Tech Chin alive. It was at this point that Lothamad of Trent attacked from the north that just so happened to be near where Mwandale was. Was Lothamad just a puppet of Mwandale meant to invade the very area where the Order of the Faulyd was based? We can't say for sure, but remember this was the leader who was known for being bald, who came from somewhere very cold. Seems like a terrible choice to stay warm, unless he was trying to mimic someone else. Regardless, Lothamad attacked into what would become Melangar, and the Order of the Faulyd was finally eradicated. At this point, Mwandale wouldn't have cared whether Lothamad succeeded any further, as his true purpose would have been complete. And Lothamad, a conqueror who dramatically increased his territory previously, all of the sudden suffered defeat, something that could happen when a former ally no longer offered support. In the end, Lothamad would go down as a failed warlord, but perhaps he didn't fail in his true purpose at all. And a final hint to that end? Remember that mountain range formerly called Dragon's Teeth? Well, here's what it is called now. Perhaps a final reminder from Mwandale himself. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Be sure to subscribe and watch my other videos to learn more about the world of Elan and Riyria. Thanks!